I'm in a weird situation here. My sister, Sarah, has been with Josh for 3 years. I own a business. Without getting too specific, I have 8 employees right now, so fairly small. I hired Josh despite having less experience than typical for a new hire, originally as a favor to Sarah, but he was a huge natural fit. From day one, he's been a huge contributor. All was fine and dandy until about 3 months ago. It came out that Josh has been sleeping with Sarah's best friend, Ashley. Ashley is now pregnant. Obviously, Sarah left him, is now living with our parents in the house I pay for. He is now engaged to Ashley and living with her. I don't see this lasting. While this was happening, I tried to remain professional with Josh. While I think he's a scummy guy, technically, personal stuff shouldn't be used against him at work. One of my longest employees, unfortunately, has had some major health complications come up, and he officially retired, keeping him on the books for insurance, but he won't be working for a while. Hate to say it, but Josh really stepped up in his absence. He's been incredibly essential in keeping us running and successful, more now than ever before. Now that it's become clear that my other employee won't be coming back anytime soon, I needed to replace him. Josh is the natural candidate, and all my other employees told me to promote him, so I gave it to him with about a 50% raise, what the person before him was making, and he's been flourishing in it. Awkward part about it, that is, Sarah just found out he was promoted from a mutual friend and is livid with me. She gave me an earful, as did my parents, and now I'm feeling pretty conflicted. I feel like personal life and professional should be treated separately, but my family is saying this is different. I think that you can have empathy for your sister and also do the right thing for your business. You have to understand that from her perspective, he has faced no consequences for cheating on her. In fact, his life has only gotten better. He's engaged with a baby on the way, living in the home that used to be hers with the other woman, and he's been promoted and makes more money. So now she feels betrayed by the man she dated, her best friend, and her brother. She's probably wondering when she's going to get a win. My advice to you? Offer to help her with something that isn't firing him. Is she in therapy? Because she's going to need it big time with all the trauma she's suffered recently. Because that is what being cheated on like this does to a person. It creates trauma. So your sister is feeling really damaged, and you need to come at her like that. Let her yell at you if that's what she needs. She needs to figure out for herself what it means to thrive. Because living well is the best revenge, and right now it feels like he's winning. Help your sister figure out what it will mean to win this breakup. Edits. They were never married or engaged, just living together. No kids together. I am not firing anyone. He hasn't broken any work rules, and that would screw over everyone else who works for me. We do profit sharing, and that would require turning down jobs due to not having bandwidth to take them on. It would also require more hours from anyone. I'm not going to do that, as that wouldn't help anybody. People keep saying, just hire someone else. But we have a natural worker shortage, and this is a specialized position. Even if the perfect candidate came in, would take at least 6 months to get them to speed. And that's with a candidate with ample experience. We have had open jobs for our entry-level roles that we train for months that aren't getting filled. Pay starts at $50K. We just haven't had qualified workers applying who are willing to do the work. It is not so simple. Timeline goes like, 2 years ago, hires Josh. Day 1, old employee takes short leave. Josh fills in temporarily at first. Couple weeks later, this all comes out. Josh is still filling in and doing great work 3 weeks later. Old employee shares he will not be coming back due to health reasons. All my other employees tell me how great Josh is doing and how much they like working for him. Business is booming, and they tell me how much they think Josh deserves the promotion officially. 2 weeks later, I have to make a decision, so I give him the promotion purely for performance reasons. Couple weeks after that, Sarah finds out, and that was in the last week. Update. Saturday night we had a family dinner where my parents and Sarah are living. We didn't talk about the subject of the last post during dinner, but Sarah was being noticeably short with me to the point that my sons noticed. After dinner, I asked her to speak in private, to which she obliged. I reiterated to her that my actions with Josh were purely about business and had nothing to do with her. She told me she knows that, and she was embarrassed at her reaction. It's just been a few really crappy months for her. Basically, she told me she hates her job, is now single and missing her former best friend. And now she's having some anxiety about never finding someone before she's too old to have kids. And meanwhile, everything keeps seeming to get better for her ex. I have to say that really was sad to hear from her. I told her I'm always here for her and asked her what ideally she'd like to do work-wise. Well, as it turns out, without getting too specific, what she would ideally like is to do something that one of my best friends has a business and needs someone to do that function. That friend owes me some favors for a jam I got them out of in the past, so I told her I'd see what I could do. Well, they connected Monday and really hit it off. They offered her a full-time position that she will now be starting in 2 weeks. She'll be making more money with better benefits, doing something she's always wanted to do. Also on Sunday, we actually went to the amusement park with my kids and her and had a bit of a family day. She said that was great therapy for her, and what she needed was to get out of the house my parents are living in, as she was just feeling sorry for herself there. She's looking at apartments this week and is hoping to find one near me, as she loves hanging out. I'm not talking free babysitting, with her nephews. My maternal granddad recently gave a cousin and I a very significant amount of money each. About a decade ago, he was really ill, and despite being fairly young and in high school at the time, we stayed at his place and took care of him for a couple of years. This was between late 2006, late 2009. My aunt and my mom would come by every weekend or so while my other aunt was living in another country. It involved helping him get into bed, making sure he ate at the right times, helping him walk, and on a few occasions, cleaning him up if he made a mess at night. My cousin and I didn't mind too much, as it gave 2 young teens the opportunity to get up to all sorts of crap and play our PS2 way later than our moms would like. Fast forward to recently, our granddad basically gave us both a lot of money as thanks for taking care of him those years, and generally helping him when no one else really gave a damn. It was completely unexpected, but definitely nice to receive. I did tell my parents and help them pay off a couple things, but that was it. However, my aunt got really ill and needs heart surgery costing a lot of money. My dad and mom asked me to help her, and I said no. They also mentioned it to my dad's side of the family, and now I have a ton of people crawling out the woodwork to ask me to help her. But here's the thing. This aunt and I have not spoken since maybe 2012. I had my final high school exams that year, and despite performing really well all throughout high school, some things happened and I just blew it. If my grades used to be straight A's, they were crap. I ended up depressed and dropped out of a community college program I barely scraped into. Around this time, our parents had a falling out that was unrelated, and this aunt basically talked crap about me, calling me a failure, a dropout, a future beggar. I don't even remember doing anything that would have caused her to target me specifically, and more than likely, she just did so to hurt my parents, who are very proud people, and generally always accepting nothing less than the best for my siblings and I. I even tried to mend that bridge, and she cut that off completely, which was back in 2015. I'd grown distant over the last 4 years or so, and now everyone, including family who had a ton of crap to talk, are asking, or not so subtly telling me, that I have to pay for her. My mom and dad are upset because she's family, and despite our falling out, I shouldn't turn her down, because her needing heart surgery very soon is more important than a grudge. I'm pissed because they talked even after I asked them not to. I don't know what I want. Do I just lick my pride off the ground and pay for her? I am of a mind to tell them to piss off, but at the same time, I'm not 100% certain I wouldn't feel guilty at some point. You earned that money by being your granddad's loving caretaker. No one has the right to tell you how to spend it. Your aunt is facing the consequence of being nasty and hateful. She made that bed. I feel the need to chime in with everyone else. You don't owe her anything, and you're not a horrible person for doing so. Your aunt cut you off, refused to mend ties, and now expects stuff from you. Sorry, honey, that's not how the world works. If she wasn't a family member, would you have this many conniptions about it? Family doesn't mean crap. It's actions that mean something, and your aunt already made her bed. Now let her lie in it. My grandmother did very well for herself. She came to America, rubbed her pennies together, and found herself a multimillionaire by the time of her death in 2004. She spoiled my mother, now 61, gave her everything she wanted. As a result, my mother never really earned a pretty penny for herself. She ran an unprofitable hair salon and took up small jobs with friends for fun. This was her life. So when her mother passed away, She was left with very little additional income. She developed a hoarding problem and, in the blink of an eye, blew through her inheritance and left my and my brother's trusts in sad states. By the time I turned 23, she was forced to sell the home I grew up in, and this was when it hit me. We don't have any money anymore. Luckily, I was already earning enough from my career to move to the city and get my own apartment. But things didn't fare out well for my mother. She lives in a small apartment now in a sketchy part of town. She struggles to let go of a lifetime of objects and memories, and her hoarding problem is becoming more and more severe. We used to host family reunions, barbecues, Christmas, Thanksgiving. All of that is gone now. I haven't seen my uncles and cousins in years. We were the ones who brought the family together. And if I even mention that to my mother, she gets defensive and claims that I'm trying to throw salt in her wound and remind her of her painful past. I told her I don't care for the mansion anymore, but if she tidied up, got rid of some things. This woman has over 200 pairs of shoes. We could at least invite people over for dinner and share some beers and laughter. She responded with, "Then don't come over then. If you don't like how I live, then you don't need to be here. I love my apartment." And that's when I realized that she doesn't even value family anymore. My older brother, 41, was around before my grandmother made it, and so he was around to witness the changes in our family, my birth, and the differences in how I was raised versus how he was raised. It's said that my grandmother warned my mother not to try to maintain the life she established for us. But my mother tried, nonetheless, and my brother says she did it all for me. And now that the house of cards has come crashing down, it seems that I am to blame. That if our mother wasn't preoccupied with giving me the best, and boy did I have the best, that she could have saved herself and gone about life in a more financially sound way. On one hand, it seems my brother harbors resentment for my having not lived in poverty during the early part of my life. And on the other hand, my mother is too stubborn to take responsibility for any of this. Our family could have been saved if my mother was transparent about our spiraling finances. But she chose to try to maintain a facade of wealth that eventually caught up to her in the end. And I just don't know what to do. The idea that all of this is my fault is just too much weight for me to bear. Do we just need to go to therapy as a family? Should I go solo? Are we done for? None of that's your fault. The blame lies entirely on your mom. Your late grandma even warned her that she shouldn't keep living like this. Yet she didn't adhere to her advice and thus ended up broke. Your brother's just bitter and spiteful. He's using you to blame as his emotions are clouding his judgment, and he's lashing out the only way he thinks is justified. Family therapy would be best, but they probably wouldn't be willing to go. Consider how their personalities seem to be. Still, wouldn't hurt. My wife, female 24, and I, male 31, have been married for a year already. We have a daughter who is 4 months old. We're currently staying with my in-laws. So, a few months back, we had a huge argument, and for some reason, her parents and siblings got involved. Probably cause we're all staying under one roof. This resulted in her mother and younger brother hating me and not talking to me. To add on a bit of context, my wife picked a fight with me and claimed how I was always protective of my little sister, who happened to be pregnant at the point we were arguing. She claims that my sister was being a know-it-all about pregnancy, consistently belittling her about her decisions to opt for a certain birth, not wanting to breastfeed and opting for bottle feeding instead, etc. Knowing my sister, I know she probably overshared things about pregnancy because she was excited to have someone who was also pregnant, her own sister-in-law. So this argument somehow blew up big time, and I didn't come home for a few days, instead choosing to do some overtime at work to keep my mind preoccupied. Naturally, I told my parents about this, and they went over to sort things out for us. I was at work when this happened, and apparently my wife and her family were adamant that I ducked up, with my choice of words, during the argument. According to my wife afterwards, my father accused her of being an irresponsible wife, which resulted in her screaming at both of my parents. I was livid when I found out. So fast forward to today. Every time someone suggests for my infant daughter to come and visit my side of the family, my daughter being the first granddaughter, niece, so naturally they all love her to bits. It turns into an argument between me and my wife. She says really hurtful things like how there's no need to bring my daughter over since my parents already have another grandchild there. My sis gave birth to a baby girl, and she's staying with my parents. and how she will never allow my father and sister to meet my daughter, or for my daughter to meet her cousin. I know it may sound like a petty issue at first glance, but it is really worse than it seems. My wife always makes it about her. She will never admit she's wrong. She refuses to take accountability, and the world revolves around her and her twisted beliefs. We sat for couples therapy once, and afterwards, she said the therapist was full of nonsense, when all he did was get the session moving, whereas she wanted things to move forward by her own conditions, which defeats the purpose of a compromise. I am at the verge of filing for a divorce. I have already consulted my divorce lawyer, without her knowledge, of course. The only thing stopping me from paying the deposit for the lawyer fees and for them to proceed is the thought of my daughter and how this decision will impact her future. Will she hate me? How will she grow up with my wife's family, who are mostly temperamental and advocates righteous violence? I cannot imagine spending my life without my baby daughter, and this saddens me. Do I suck it up and stay for the sake of my daughter, or should I prioritize my own mental health and hope for a better future with whatever time I'm allowed with my daughter? Help. Bottom line is, all of you handled this badly, but it's just a symptom of a far bigger problem. You shouldn't be living with your in-laws. You shouldn't be telling your folks about your arguments. Tell your sis to stop giving unsolicited advice because she's not an expert. If she wants to do that crap, she can go to super mommy blogs online where they out-mommy each other to death. Your parents shouldn't fight your battles. You shouldn't have disappeared for 3 days, especially with a newborn. Your wife is out of control and violent. For these reasons, you either both commit to counseling and move out, or get a divorce and co-parent. Stop being dramatic about a situation you are all responsible for.